Hey Fosters, Kayla here. I am checking in with a Breeder Dog 101 with ya. I want to go over a few points, so hopefully this doesn't get too lengthy, but I think it's all really great, important tips and tricks for when you bring your scared breeder release dog home. So these tips are going to mainly touch base on dogs that we see come in that are terrified. Every now and then we have a good chunk of dogs that come in that really warm up within the first 24 hours, especially if you have other dogs. Just an FYI, if you're interested in one of these dogs, oftentimes other dogs in the home will help them come around and honestly do more fostering than you will. So that's always something to know. But then puppies specifically do come around really quickly, which is great. But we always also do have our group of breeder release adult dogs that are oftentimes very difficult to get turned around and feeling good. Like I said, some of them come around within a week and some of them need a month or two. So this is me kind of just giving you some tips and tricks, and you guys can do with that with you what you want. But here is what I've learned over the years. So let us know if you have any questions about it. So the first 24 hours that I do have my breeder dog, and this 24 hours is adjustable. Sometimes it needs to be 3 or 4 days. It all depends on what your dog is doing and how they're reacting. So I always say the first 24 plus hours, I like to bring my dog home and limit the amount I expect of them. I honestly, they're going to have accidents. They have had 0 tips for potty training for pottying outside. I don't even take them outside that first 24 hours. Like I said, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed. They get kennel rest. They oftentimes have had a hellacious week before they arrive to us. They've been uprooted from the place, from the building they were likely born in. They have been neglected. They have oftentimes are pretty severely dehydrated or have not eaten. They have not had any sleep, and the environment they have been in is very loud and very stressful. Not to mention any physical ailments they are also suffering from, or the way that they've been treated by people. Okay, so that dog I bring home will not be ready to meet your dogs, to meet your kids, to meet your friend that wants to adopt it, to go on a hike. It's not going to want to do any of those things. So if we have that expectation, then we're already prepared for that. If they come in disgusting and smelly, you are not going to do any more harm that has already been done to them if you go and sit them in the bathtub and soak them and get them, try to get them smelling better. Oftentimes fur and hair will have to be cut off, and that should only be done with buzzers, but you can contact us for some grooming options as well too, so to get that taken care of as soon as possible. Okay, so that first 24 plus hours, I don't walk them outside. I give them food and water in a kennel. Sometimes it's larger than I would use for potty training because I literally have a space that they can be content in, get up, walk around, eat and drink, and sleep. That's the only thing I'm asking them to do in that first 24 hours. If they make a mess, I just clean it up. Okay, I'm hoping that in that 24 hours, they've had a chance to sleep, to rehydrate, and to just get acclimated into that new house's smells, sounds, etc. Okay, so after that, I do, if I am considering, well, I have to start leash walking them outside, and I'm also giving them periods of time outside of their kennel, and during those times, I want them to have a slip lead on. Okay, so this is a slip lead. A slip lead consists of something with a loop on it here, that it's a rope that loops into itself with a stopper. If you go to get your foster dog and someone hands you a slip lead, or you go to get a slip lead and this stopper is chewed off or missing or really, really loose, not working, I want you to throw it away and look for a better one. We want something that we can move up that's going to stay there, and so that when there's slack in the leash, that loop is not getting any bigger, because we don't want it to continue to get bigger if there's slack and just fall off, because that's how we lose dogs. So we want a slip lead with the stopper on it. I'm going to keep this on my foster dog. I'm going to have them drag it around so that when it's time to go outside, I'm not stressing them out by having to find them, pull them out from underneath furniture, catch them. I want to make the event of going in and outside as less steps as I possibly can, the least amount of steps. So they already have a slip lead on. I walk up, I grab it. Okay, come on, let's go. It's not, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. They don't understand what you're saying. And it's just stressful because you're not calming to them. People are not good yet. So we want to leave the slip lead on. So I have a foster dog, little Marble. I had that slip lead on probably for the first 2 weeks. So what I'm doing, like I said, I'm not only desensitizing them from or making it easier for me to go indoors and outdoors, but I am desensitizing them to a leash. It is terrifying to them. Most of them have never had something around their neck, and they don't know what to do when you apply pressure with the leash. So having them drag that around is also desensitizing them as well too. So and it's a safety measure, right? If they're in constant like flight mode, if I have this lead, I'm able to step on it, stop them from going outdoors. It's an extra, long version of myself that I can use as a tool. So I want them to drag that leash. And like I said, it can be weeks. You can also have them drag leash if they're from anywhere else. If they're a naughty puppy or a counter surfer, have this, or you don't want them on your furniture, have a leash on so you can correct that behavior. Next is walking on a leash. Walking on a leash can be super duper stressful. I will tell you right now, it looks very dramatic when you're trying to train your breeder dog on a leash. They will fight and flail and hate it, but it's something that you really, really, really need to be consistent about, because the more consistent you are about it every single time, if they're small enough, sometimes I will carry them out and sit them out in the grass. Sometimes they don't move. Sometimes they just do circles around you, which is really common. But sometimes before those things even happen, they will kind of fight on the end of that leash. I will do short, consistent, it's not a constant pull and tension on the leash, but I will do short, consistent pulls on that leash. We are moving around until I do pull them in through that front door. I want them to learn that we don't get picked up and in and out. Every time we go in and out, we're not going to be picked up. But like I said, sometimes I'll pick them up to get them out, but then they normally associate inside with safety. So the first time that they will go through a door is when they think that they can go back inside. Like I said, it looks brutal for the first couple days, but if you are consistent with it, like 3 days of me kind of dragging her around on a leash, she's golden. She's good now. We can go anywhere and she's got that leash on and she walks on it. But if we carry our dogs around, if we put harnesses on them, if we don't make them walk on a leash, you can drag this out for months. And I mean it, I've seen it. So please be consistent with that. These dogs are oftentimes not potty trained. It does take, this is probably the most frustrating part of owning a breeder release dog, because they have no concept of potty training. A lot of their natural instincts are just not there. And they're terrified of people. So it's hard to associate being connected to someone and being relaxed enough to go to the bathroom. That being said, unless you have a male that is marking on things in the home, or your female dog is in heat, we really would rather not have diapers on the dogs. Diapers on the dogs and pee pads all over the house is just confusing. It does interfere with their potty training ability, and it's also uncleanly and can create health concerns by trapping all of that urine and bacteria in the diaper. Okay, so we do want to see our foster base promote potty training outside throughout the year at all times. Okay, feeding. Oftentimes the first few days I will have food and water available because they won't eat or drink in front of you. But then once they start to loosen up and come around, I do start to have scheduled feeding times. We do want scheduled feeding times in the kennel for them to be desensitized by being in that kennel. But then also it just creates a schedule is really, really important for these guys. If you keep a schedule for these dogs that are petrified, they start to learn what's happening next and what's going to be expected of them. And that in itself is calming versus being chaotic and not knowing what's going to happen to them or where they're going to go or what's happening next. That can create more anxiety. Okay, pottying. We did talk about pottying, but one thing I wanted to mention is that it is completely normal for them to go days without having a bowel movement and 24, 36 hours before seeing them pee. Okay, so don't freak out. It is okay. If you see them straining and they can't go, that's a different thing. But if you see them just not going at all, it can be normal for them to hold their stool and their urine for a pretty good amount of time. But again, always reach out if you think it hasn't been long enough. But I've had countless amount of dogs come in and it be over 24 hours before I see any pee or poop. Okay? Kennel training. Kennel training is extremely important to me. It is to the rescue, I should say. It is important to the rescue. These dogs are going to have, once their eyes are open and they start to see people as in a more positive light, they will want to be around you. But we have very unstable dogs, and they're very impressionable, and they have been, their eyes are opening to this new amazing world of people and beds and food and just love. And it's very easy for us to create separation anxiety. These dogs don't arrive with it. So we'll be giving it to them if we don't create a concise schedule and the appropriate amount of boundaries. I do not want your foster dog sleeping in your bed. We do want your foster dog being in a kennel when you are not home and when you are asleep. The reason for this is because if we don't set clear boundaries and enable them to be independent dogs and not just a growth on the side of you and always with you, you will create separation anxiety in these dogs. Okay, so having an appropriate amount of boundaries is very, very, very important to their health, their mental health. They come with enough anxiety of their own. We don't need to give them more. Okay, so if we think about it like that, we are creating a more stable, happier dog by making sure that they are given boundaries and expectations from their people in charge. Okay? Another thing I wanted to mention was too much space. These dogs are very used to a pretty small amount of space. They've eaten in that space. They've done all of their, bathroom breaks in that space. They've never gone anywhere. They've never been in a car. So too much space and freedom is actually also increasing their anxiety and their stress levels. I think a lot of the mentality is I'm going to give them everything that they've never had before, but that can negatively affect them as well too. And you can see it in your dog. Right now I have, so she's sleeping underneath the table with my Frenchie. I have little, I can't remember her name, Marble right now. She is content and sleeping now. But a couple weeks ago, if I had sat her on the floor and not given her any direction, she would have walked around and circled and paced and found a corner to hide in every single time. And the reason for that is because they're overwhelmed and they don't know what to do with that amount of freedom. Like I said, they don't know what to expect. We haven't given them direction, and they are not in a position to make decisions for themselves yet. So we want to set those clear expectations, this clear space. Okay, this is all yours. So you're welcome to create areas in the home that they can have more freedom in, but we don't want to give them access of the whole house, or that can become very overwhelming for them. She still doesn't have access to the whole house. Right now, I don't know if you can see it, but at the end of the hallway, there is a gate there. So she has access to our living room, and then on the other side of me, my kitchen and my dining room. I do not have I have carpeted bedrooms or carpets or rugs in the bedrooms. None of my foster dogs are allowed in the bedrooms, downstairs, even in the bathrooms. They have a pretty limited amount of space to begin with, but even Marble wasn't given all of this space because it was still overwhelming when we first brought her home. So something like a little bathroom, a gated off dining room, even a little puppy pen, even for adults, is an adequate amount of space for those first few weeks while they get used to living in a home and their nerves start to settle a little bit and they get used to you. So that too much space can be overwhelming. So we want to limit what they initially have access to. And you can play it by ear. If sometimes even still, Marble will get up when the kids get home from school and she kind of starts to walk around a little bit and get a little whiny. That means that she's stressed out. She's telling me she's not comfortable with what's happening with all the movement, all the noise. So I will pick her up and I'll put her, my end tables are little kennel areas. I'll put her in one of those. She's telling me that she's overwhelmed and she needs more, not confinement, but she needs time to herself. She's overwhelmed by what's happening. So I will go ahead and put them in the kennel. It's not a punishment. It's a tool that I'm using to help comfort them and give them what they're requesting of me, which is just more time, and they have too much pressure on them to perform. So anyway, so those are my few things. Obviously, we still need to continue working with our normal intake protocol, our exams, our surgeries. Sometimes you can go back a little bit and regress a little bit with the behavior changes that you're seeing, but that's totally normal. So don't let that, upset you. But it is a work in progress. Sometimes you'll be given medication to help lessen the stress that your foster dog is under, especially after their intake appointment if they feel like it's needed. But we're always here to help answer questions as they come up. And another thing I wanted to mention too is sometimes dogs don't know what to do with a really calm, quiet house. They've just kind of lived in. Sometimes it's a very loud setting too. Like, the quiet can almost feel odd or weird to them, or sometimes you'll see them up at night but then asleep during the day. Those things can happen. If you have a dog that is kind of just fills the quiet voids with noise and barking, something that I use is either covering the kennel to create that darker space during periods of time, not all the time. Sometimes I will turn the TV on or fan or music. They've got white noise machines. You can try all those things. You can put them in a different room that might be more comforting to them. So feel free to try things out and see what the best fit is for your dog. But there's sometimes just a lot of confusion and they don't know what's happening those first few weeks. So anyways, let us know if you have any questions and we will be happy to help. But I hope this was helpful and thank you for watching. All right, bye-bye.